medtech industry finally seems to be coming into its own in the last 5 years. Strong growth, innovation in select pockets, and significant pickup in manufacturing and massive government thrust. Indian companies are making strides, especially in devices, stents, implants, sutures, wound care products, driving both higher market share locally and innovating. We're also seeing green shoots of some innovation in diagnostics imaging equipment, large market where the reliance on imports still continues to be on the higher side. To win in India, one also needs to bring together distribution alongside strong manufacturing and quality. We are seeing early signs of companies disrupt the traditional distribution channel, specifically in preventive and wellness medtech products. Just an interesting data point that I looked at this morning. The Indian pharma market is 50 billion in size between local and exports. And the top 10 companies collectively have a market cap of $170 billion. If you add another 20, 30 companies, a number of large private companies, this will exceed $300 billion. At a 10 billion market size, medtech is still small, but the opportunity is massive. And I don't want to hazard a guess, but we are probably looking here and now at least 3 to 5x of market cap or value creation. So exciting times. Let me start with Mani. Mani, you co-founded Sutures back in the day, taking on global competition, Ethicon, B. Brown, Medtronic, all the heavyweights, and setting the trend for a number of medtech founders to follow. Tell us generally, what does it take to build a scaled medtech business in India? And what are some of the learnings from the first journey that if you had to kind of go back and rewind the clock and do it again, what are the two, three things that you would do differently?
To start, why was it successful? Only he knows. But then, what we did differently from the multinationals? The multinationals would always focus on the metro market. We came from the outside. We never had a marketing team in the metro market. We had a marketing team in the offices. And unfortunately for us, the multinational would never go there. So we had an audience which we served, and we started making all the products ourselves. What is suture? Suture is nothing but a string and a needle which you attach, wind, sterilize and give it. This is what most of the suture company even today in India do. Whereas we took the path of backward integration, we made our own sutures, we made our own needles. Thereby we could tailor make a product to a doctor's requirement. And initially, it was not easy for us. So we would even go to the extent of requesting a doctor, please use it for a port closure. We made a suture which was 20 centimeters in length, so that they would give a try, because there was a phobia in the minds of the user that Indian products can't be good. I'm talking of late 90s. Those days, there was no competition to the multinational. And there was no marketing team in the country other than Ethicon. B. Brown was there, but very few people were there. Ethicon was the father, is the father, will be the father. So there is no point in questioning him or challenging him. It is better to ape him. So have the same product descriptions and everything, even to the extent of following the same product codes, only change the prefixes. Because doctors knows it by a 3O or a 2O or a 1O 40 mm needle, or a 2347. That is the code given by Ethicon. So if you are able to give the same product, make your user accept your product. Fortunately for us, the doctors in the hinterlands were more open because Ethiconian won't go there. That is how we made our foray into the market. And if I have to do something different, what we had done wrong was, we said we will not market any product that is not made by us. I feel that was a mistake. Had we gone ahead and marketed more product, because you already invested in marketing, you have a team, how do you exploit the team strength? Fill the basket with as many products as the user would want to have. That's the one mistake which we have made. We shouldn't have done that.
That's very interesting. The quality of the product and really understanding what the user wants. And we'll come back to some of it. Arpi, you have disrupted a market on the back of delivering a quality product. A dental aligner, which is manufactured here locally in Mumbai using 3D printing technology and becoming the market leader here in India. What has driven this market leadership? What has been the experience so far?
So, we started this business, me and my co-founders, as orthodontists wanting to provide hundreds of millions of Indians with a invisible solution to teeth straightening. This was around 4 years back, and I think the problem statement that we were faced with and the solution to that is basically what really got us here, right? Develop a quality product at a price which Indians can afford. This equation, while sounding very simplistic, is very tough to crack, especially in Medtech. We all know it. So we, in order to really solve for this, I feel like we had to innovate at every possible end of the value chain, if I may say so. Right? We started with the product per se, developed a cost-effectively manufactured product, which was high quality, got it US FDA certified, met all of that. Then moved to distribution. We had to actually innovate a fair bit on distribution, say, unlike your classic medtech companies. So the traditional orthodontic ecosystem will actually have multiple stakeholders in the process. So you have your laboratory, which makes the product, you have your dental office, and you have the orthodontist, who's the specialist. This exchange of hands basically makes the end price to the consumer extremely high. So we had to actually put on all of the hats, become a vertically integrated platform, become the orthodontist, become the dentist, and become the product manufacturer. And that is how we said, okay, we were able to actually launch a quality product at a price point which was nearly 60% lower than the average price at that time. And last end was obviously the customer. We took cognizance of the fact that we live in a world where, people are used to Amazon and Swiggy. Traditionally, Indians or customers or patients had to visit the dental office 10 to 12 times or say 1 or 2 years to actually get their teeth straightened. We used digital technology even at this end of the funnel, converting that into a process which actually can be done from the patient's home. Right? So barring 2 or 3 visits that are required at our clinics or at our experience centers, the patient can actually scan, see his plan, and do the entire digital monitoring, treatment progress monitoring, teleconsultations, video consultations, everything that is required from the comfort of his home. So really it was, your innovation at the customer end, the distribution and the product, which really led to this.
And it's interesting, maybe the price point is interesting because I did, when I was seeing my dentist, she then suggested I meet the ortho. And when the ortho dentist put a price, I fell off my chair, and the dental chair is quite heavy. But the price was like some 3 lakhs or something for the treatment. And I just, what is the price point? Like how different is it from, what my orthodontist suggested, which is using an Invisalign?
So had you come to us, we would have given it to you for 60,000.
Okay. Girish, let me, we've seen the last few years as Indian companies have progressively ramped up investing in medical devices, aggressively expanding manufacturing capacity, adding talent. The same count, MNCs have taken a bit of a step back in certain pockets. GE is a standout on that front, continue to be, very, very actively invested in India. And you all have a dual model in India. There is a very strong local model for diagnostics imaging equipment, and there is an India for global model. Walk us through that model. What are the things that you do here that are relevant for the global markets? Any innovations that have come out of India and the Indian ecosystem can learn from, right? How do you pull it together at this scale that you operate in India?
So firstly, thanks for the opportunity, Chintan. I'm between two co-founders. It's not easy, but I'll try my best. So firstly, as you mentioned, right, we have the largest technology center for GE Healthcare in Bangalore, right? So it is not easy to have the large tech center for a $19 billion company out of a location. It just shows the quality of talent we have. India is clearly the talent capital of the world. To be candid, we have the largest data scientist in the company in Bangalore, with the largest pool of cyber experts in Bangalore, the largest pool of AI experts in Bangalore. So you name any key skills, right? You name it, you'll find it in Bangalore, right? So that is one big advantage what India has, and a lot of MNCs like us have capitalized on it to a large extent in the last 30 years or so. So that is clearly one distinct reason why we are so prominent, and not only us, most of the Medtech companies are very prominent in the space as far as Bangalore is concerned, right? As India is concerned. The other thing I want to highlight also why we got to here is infrastructure. A lot of big Medtech companies have invested tremendously in infrastructure. So Medtech is highly infrastructure intensive, right? So we have in my campus, we have more CTs than maybe any hospital in the country. We have more X-rays than any hospital in the world, right? You name it, you have X-rays which are as old as me to the latest and greatest X-ray systems. So we have invested massively, millions of dollars in building world-class infrastructure. We have cyber labs, 5G labs, you name it, right? You have the high tech. So that is also, so good talent, good infrastructure is what is very important for us to get to where we are, and that's what GE also capitalized, like most medtech companies are capitalized on. Now coming to the second question about the innovation aspect, see, India is perhaps one of the most cost-conscious country in the world. I would say the most, right? It is a lot out of pocket. If you can sell in India, you can sell anywhere in the world, right? If you can innovate in India, it's applicable for anywhere in the world. So one is cost conscious. Second is throughput, right? So in the last 3 weeks, last Friday, I visited a hospital in Delhi, and I was shocked. They do around 1,000 scans per day, 1,000 scans per day on 3 systems. Okay. It just unimaginable. Nowhere in the world, I've been to so many customers across the world. Nowhere I've seen this volume of throughput, right? Maybe in China, you will find some hospital here and there. I was in a hospital in Bombay 2 weeks back. They do 65 mammograms per day, and they stop by 4 o'clock with 2 systems. Nowhere in the world you can see this kind of throughput. If you want to experiment with throughputs, volume, etc., again, this is the place, right? So what a lot of MNCs like us have done is that we have leveraged the capability of this country, especially to come with very cost-conscious products. And you develop in India, and then you see how to scale it across the world. So it is, you innovate in India first, make sure it works, more from a cost standpoint and also from a throughput standpoint. To give an example, the CT, right? We developed the CT in India for India market. It was one of the first CTs which was full designed and developed from India for the market in India. It was designed for 20 CTs per day. During COVID, there were customers who were using with 190 CTs per day, 190 during the COVID, heights of COVID. So that kind of innovation is something which is tough to think. So in these 2 aspects, we innovate in India and we take it globally. The areas where we have challenges today in scaling up is on the advanced clinical applications. Still, because of the volume we have, in India, we have not as much advanced on advanced clinical application, right? Like if you want to do in cardiology, if you want to do an aortic valve replacement and so on and so forth, very few people today in India do that. The scale are much more higher there. So that is where we get the reverse innovation coming to the country. The third aspect of big MNCs having an advantage versus the other players in the local market is the access to high-tech technology, right? So if across the world, we have access to the best and the best technologies in the world, which you can bring it for your country. Like CT as an example, right? One CT which we developed in India for the country, the core of the image chain, which is the secret sauce in CT, we took it from a high-end system which was developed in the US. So you get the best of both happening in this country. So that's
I think one point that MNCs have and Indian companies probably lack: finance. Yeah. The biggest one.
That's the myth, by the way.
Is a big one.
Yeah, that's the myth. It's always the same. You always have. I think you always have money for good projects. You always have challenges with budgets when the projects are not good. I don't think whether it's a local or global, it matters a lot. It's just ROI, right? Good business case always attracts good money. I'm sure there are investors here, and if I make a good proposal, I'm sure you'll put money.
We'll come to some of the challenges. Arpi, it's tough to build a brand in India, and especially in Medtech. And your brand directly resonates with the customers. What have been the challenges? You have, in some ways, bypassed the physician community, and without their blessings, we see that in the OTC world as well, right? It's not always easy to transition a RX brand, to an OTC brand. Walk us through what has it taken to, build this brand beyond, of course, Virat Kohli and Anushka.
So I'll come to the physician part, interestingly, in a bit. With respect to challenges, I think the core is for us, and I'm guessing it probably would be true with a lot of Indian medtechs, right? To build the trust and the conviction that the platform and the product needs from, say, all of the stakeholders that come as part of your journey, right? Be it your investors, be it your doctors, be it the end user or the customer, right? We operate in a category which is relatively new. Consumers are not very aware. So for us, when we started off, we were perceived as a young Indian brand that came up one day and said, hey, you know what? This plastic tray is going to fix orthodontic malocclusion, which has been treated with braces for the last hundreds of years. So it was a difficult proposition to convince the end user of the quality, the effectiveness, the doctors with whom we work for the same, and obviously the investors and other stakeholders involved, right? Secondly, I think when we launched, we already had two very strong international brands operating in the country. We all know there is a bias that India still has with respect to international brands when it comes to quality, right? It's the irony of our country. Everybody wants a lower price. Everybody wants an affordable product. And when you build an affordable product which is quality certified, people question, does this really work? So I think we battled a bunch of that. And it took us some time in terms of getting more and more users out there who actually used the product, certified it, validated it, got US certifications for our product, so that could add additional validation. But that I think finally got us here. The second part of your question, which is an interesting one, right? So for us, the end customer, right, is actually twofold. It's the doctor and the customer. When we operate as a consumer-facing brand, we obviously work with and utilize doctors, both dentists and orthodontists. The only difference being these are part of our, either they're employees or they are empaneled with us or they're partner doctors with us, right? So they're doctors within our ecosystem. Now, who are operating, say, working in our centers or working in our lab and so on and so forth, right? It's almost like saying that, should the physician community in a medical equivalent scenario, right, be upset because there's a hospital brand which is acquiring consumers to the hospital, right? There are doctors in the hospital that are treating patients there, right? So having said that, we had our share of challenges with respect to a certain specialist, faction of the dental community who was obviously used to pricing the product at extremely high price points, right? And when you come in with a price disruption as such, there were, some concerns with those. But I think over time, the larger dental community saw the value in actually partnering with us, working with us, and being able to offer an invisible yet affordable product to their users and their patients. So all is well that ends well.
Mani, what was your experience? Back in the days, those were early days. And, MedTech was not as evolved, starting at ground level. But as you progress towards, the more concentrated cities and tier one infrastructure providers, how did you win over KOLs? How do you convince going into the hospital that, sutures works, right? And it's better than Ethicon, it's better than anything else.
No, there's no shortcut. You have to walk the street and you have to keep visiting the doctors repeatedly. And so that first, when we started, there was already an impression that Indian products are bad. So there was heavy reluctance to use our product. In fact, the first 4 years of our existence, we were 100% exporters, and our domestic business was negative. We were sustaining with our exports. For us to break even in the Indian market took a much, much longer time. Leave alone tender, the doctors were, I don't want to blame them, but it's their experience that is making them wary of using our product. So it is the walking the street, convincing the doctor, because Indian manufacturer used to show their product, and if there was a complaint, they would disappear. So where will the faith, the trust was a problem. So we had to go repeatedly, convince them, be with them. Then slowly they started accepting.
I'll just switch a little bit, Girish. Are you seeing, what sort of development are you seeing on the ground in imaging? I think there is some advancement. We've seen real progress in devices, consumables, implants. We haven't seen much of that, at least outside, and it looks like, in diagnostics imaging equipment. What is the reality on the ground? And what will it take to build at least a meaningful company out of India in diagnostics imaging equipment? Let's say an equivalent of a United Imaging out of China.
So I would perhaps start with the problem we are trying to solve today, right? I think as an industry, we are going after 2-3 problems. It's very simple. Like most of the imaging companies, they go after 3 problems. One, we have a huge shortage of technologists who can operate the systems, right? So how do you make the systems easy to use? I always give this as an example of aeroplane and auto rickshaws, right? The minute you can have an auto driver use the aeroplane, you're one, right? So that's an example. So one is technologies availability, you can operate the system. The second issue we are facing today in the industry is that there's a lot of burnout among the radiologists, imaging, so radiologists as an example. So if you look at today, 5 years back, 8 years back, a typical radiologist would see, say, 20 CT scans in a day, or maybe 30 X-rays in a day. But today he sees hundreds, right? He gets into the dark room at 8 o'clock in the morning, and he got a small lunch break, and by evening he's done, right? We have highest burnouts there. People want to quit the industry because it's just not practically possible to go through this level of stress. So the second problem we are facing. The third problem we are facing today in the industry is productivity and efficiency, right? So every year we have a lot of people coming out of poverty. They're getting a middle class, and with that, the propensity to pay for healthcare is also increasing. But unfortunately, the healthcare systems are not so elastic enough to absorb that population coming into that segment. If you go to big hospitals, you can see long queues, right? CT scans. There's one hospital. Most of you know this. The wait time for a PET scan, for a cold PET scan, because of it's for underserved communities, close to 12 months. Right? Huge queue for these kind of systems. So basically, these are the 3 problems we are trying to solve: affordability, accessibility, solving the technologist problem, and radiologist problem, right? So if you look at the work we are doing today in the industry is more towards that, right? And so what we are doing today. So this is exactly where AI comes into place quite a bit. So there's a lot of focus going towards digital in the space of medical technology. Pretty much all big players, small players, pretty much all of them are going after that. We are looking at how do we make systems smarter, right? So today, years back, if you go to a CT system or X-ray system, the fundamental philosophy was that the X-ray system is dumb and you are smart. So you need smart technologies to operate a dumb system. But today the equations have changed, right? The systems are very smart. Today we have CT systems or MR systems which can tell the technologists, look like the patient has moved a bit, you have to take a rescan, right? There are CT systems which will connect to the hospital information system or the radiology information system and recommend to the technologist that for this patient who's obese, I have checked the records for this guy. I think we should go through these protocols, right? Not don't choose the wrong protocol because the dose would be suboptimal for you. So systems have become extremely smart nowadays. The second is about that is about smart devices. The second thing is about the space of digital. How can we make things easy? So today, I think there are 2 spaces where digital comes in a big way. One is autonomous systems. So if you go to a hospital, right, you can see a lot of interventions by technologists in the entire workflow to just take an X-ray system. Okay, or you take a CT There's so much interventions. You see, you're going inside, coming out, setting the position, again comes outside, you do something in the computer, again goes inside. All this can be automated. There's a lot of work happening to the industry that we plan to automate pretty much every step so that the throughput increases. You can do more scans in a day and you have less fatigue for the technologist. The third thing we're trying to solve again through digital is about the radiologist problem, right? So you have, say, you do 100 CT scans in a day. Okay, reporting. Reporting is a pain. I don't know any of you have experienced this. I know one of my relative went through. Sometimes for a PET scan, a report takes close to 10 days to 12 days to get you take a PET scan today, you get after 10 days the report, right? It's so painful for the patient because they go to so much of anxiety to know what's the PET scan, what happened, so on and so forth, right? Today there's a lot of work happening where reporting is auto-generated and you have somebody looking at it and signing it off, right, and saying it's fine. That is one example. You still need somebody to look at it, but a lot of the work has been automated to a large extent. The other thing is about if you take there are 20 or 100 CT scans in a day, we have got systems intelligence which will look at them and say, oh, these out of the 100 scans, these 30 look suspicious. Maybe you should spend more time. These 70 looks normal. Just let it go. You can after lunch when you are tired, you can just quickly go through and just say okay. You got PET scans where AI is able to detect and say this is a lesion. I'm seeing this. It just put a round circle around it, so the person reviewing it is supposed to look at it. As against missing it completely. 6 months later, when the guy gets a bigger lesion, you go back and look at the report 6 months back, it had it. You just missed it, right? So you can see we are trying to solve radiologist problem using digital. We are trying to solve technologist problem using digital. We're talking about devices getting smarter. This is the third one. And the fourth one is about disease, right? So there are many diseases today, obviously in the world, but the largest killers today are, I would say, cardiology and oncology. So there is a lot of work happening today on how do we stitch solutions together. So today, if you look at these care pathways have been very siloed and fragmented. So there's a lot of focus going towards how do we get these things together and make them as a continuous solution. So basically, as an industry, we are going after the 3 problems I mentioned and the 4 big thrust areas what we're talking about. So coming to your question about what it takes to do that, yeah. So there's no way somebody can solve all these problems, right? It needs, as you mentioned, a lot of partnerships with folks who are good at. So we work a lot with partners. There are AI companies we work with who tries to, it's a string of pearls, right? You have people who are good at it. You just stitch them together and look from a customer standpoint how we can solve a problem. So that's my summary.
And just on digital, RP, we spoke about it and you briefly touched upon it. It takes decades to build a distribution network in India. And, you have used, at the core of Tutsi is digital and distribution and disrupting distribution. Give us some color without giving the secret sauce of, your investment in digital, the customer engagement, and how do you all do it?
Sure. So, digital for us, right? I mean, let me start with technology per se, right? Technology for us is basically twofold. One is the core tech aligner product that we worked on, right? That is basically the whole software, smile design, treatment planning that substitutes what a doctor at the chair side had been doing with the help of braces, right? So there's this whole amount of technology work that goes over this layer of treatment planning that our orthodontists, dentists, and engineers actually do in our lab. Besides that, there is digital adoption around the entire process or order management system, as we call it, right? So right from the awareness or education of the consumer and the doctor, which, by the way, we rely on social media primarily, right? So 85% of all of that is digital. From there till the whole consultation process, be it our in-store consultation, teleconsultation, video consultation with doctors, followed by the entire smile plan visualization or simulation of how your smile was, what it will change to, is also a 3D plan that actually shows up on the patient's app, screen that he sees, followed by, say, EMI payments, which he can make again via payment gateways on his mobile phone. And that is followed then by an entire 6 to 9 month digital monitoring process, right? So traditionally, you will have the patient who will actually come into the clinic every time and the doctor will check his teeth and then do the next step, right? We have actually converted and replaced all of that with an app where a patient is actually sending his photographs, right? He's sending in photographs taken with his iPhone camera or Android camera into our app, and then doctors at the back end are actually monitoring it, and that's how the patient actually does his, progress monitoring. This aided by obviously clinical intervention that the doctors do in the centers, right? So all of this amalgamates, and everything that joins this is the whole digital web and app journey that actually connects all of these dots and puts it together for us, right? This for us honestly solved two very large things which were a necessity, right? So number one being able to offer the product at this price point, right? The need to not have, say, 400 centers with multiple visits in the centers seen by doctors in person, right? Reduced that cost for us dramatically. We became asset light in that sense, right? Because all of it was done by the patient on his mobile phone from the comfort of his home. And secondly, it elevated consumer experience fantastically, right? So we were able to then say, hey, we'll give you a quality product, quality treatment, with an A+ consumer experience at a price that you can only dream of. I think all of that came together.
Mani, just coming back to you, as we look ahead, especially within medical devices, both surgical, non-surgical, what are the opportunities and white spaces that lie ahead to build a meaningful business?
Opportunities are plenty. But then how do you bypass China? If you're able to find a solution to that, your opportunity is immense.
And give us some color. When you say,
Like,
how do you bypass China?
Whether we like it or not, we all are compelled to import something or the other from China. And I think Europe is slowly going back into the shell. You no longer can depend on Europe for any material. US you cannot afford. Therefore, your only option is either to depend on China or to make it yourself. It is easier said than done, because we may not like to acknowledge it, but China has progressed tremendously in the last 10 years. We would say, "Arey, Chinese maal hai, haath mat lagao." Today you can't say that. Their quality has improved. We have to acknowledge it, and we have to find a way. We are very slow. Our reaction time is very long. But their reaction time is fantastic. Let us learn from them. No point in being jealous about them, but we have to find a way how to do it all. Like every machinery for we have to import from China. If you look at a local guy who can put up a machine together for you, one, he takes long time and he never gives you what you want. So you're compelled to go back to China.
How do you manage the supply chain here locally? Give us some color around the supply chain. Where does India stand on the supply chains, both on heavy equipment as well as on devices?
Yeah, I think what Mani mentioned is spot on, right? Because today, if you look at across the globe, pretty much power electronics is fully in China, right? US is done, Europe is pretty much non-existent. So China has built a lot of competence over the years. That is the fact. It's something we have to acknowledge. There's no other way. So today, if you look at imaging equipments, the most complex piece is a detector, right? You fire an X-ray, you have a detector which captures it, right? Today, the largest company is a Chinese company. The largest detector manufacturer in the world is a Chinese company. They're number one or number two, right? Number one is Thales, and they always compete. Some reports will say one or the other. So look at top 5-6 when I was in China recently, you can find people working on those high-end technologies like chai shops in Kerala, right? Every third stall will be a detector company. India, you don't have even one, right? So I think our biggest challenge is to build a very strong supplier ecosystem. Our supply ecosystem is very weak. So what we do at best is it's HLA, right? What we call high-level assembly. We have manufacturing houses which when we see, I'm saying the industry as such, we just get it. We get parts from various parts of the world and we assemble it and build a system. That is what is our competency today, right? But if we just go 2 steps back and see every component, invariably they'll have a touch with the Chinese company somewhere. You have to get them and do it. So one good thing we have seen in the recent years is the governments, both the state as well as the central government, has put a lot of focus on building a robust supply ecosystem, which is very essential for our long-term growth. And we have seen a lot of examples in the mobile phone market, right? A lot of industries have come up trying to build it. Component manufacturing has got a lot of trust in the last few years. In the right direction. I wish we had started it years back, but clearly China has an edge. It will take a while to get over there. And third thing is their economies of scale, right? You can it's very difficult to hit the price point what some of the Chinese companies will be able to provide today, just because of the economies of scale. Right? They have done certain things very well. A lot of capital investments have gone from the government to push some of these trust sectors. So that's a challenge. And today we have to buy. The good thing for MNCs like us is we have access to the large ecosystem. So we go to the best location. And sometimes it is a European company, it will be Chinese company, Indian company. In a lot of areas where we have a lot of strengths today. In sheet metal, for example, we are very good. But electronics, we have to go to Chinese companies quite a bit.
And what about talent, right? Under the new medical policy that is still in the works, one of the thrust areas is skilling. We keep drawing an analogy with pharma. Pharma obviously, has an abundance in terms of the talent pool. It's a multi-decade sector. How do you address talent on the ground, manufacturing within medical equipment, medical devices?
So one area where, generally if you look at engineering per se, our talent base is pretty good, right? I would say better than most countries in the world. One area where we're not good at is research, right? Research needs a lot of endurance, right? You start, say for example, oncology, you start a research today, it takes 10 years before something, you can see that. So the good thing is with the new policies, there are focus going towards building a very sound research base, which is very essential for our long-term sustainability as a company and as a country. So that is definitely a very, very positive thing we are seeing today. I think that is definitely one big space we have to focus on. What is the other question?
Yeah, it was around talent.
Yeah, okay. So I think research and development is one big space we have to focus on. Otherwise, if you look at from a talent, from a Chinese companies or a Chinese country or India or other we are pretty much good at. There are certain spaces where we struggle a bit, specifically on some very niche areas, like if you want to work on some advanced image quality thing. So there are some Western countries who are very good at it. Our curriculum doesn't even help us to get there. I used to work a few years back on a very niche nuclear medicine project. We had zero talent in India, zero. Okay. Fortunately, that time Trump was the president of US and many people wanted to come back to India. So we actually tapped on it and got some very solid nuclear scientists from US to India to come and help, because we found nobody in the country, right? Because our education system doesn't help folks, and if there are some guys, they'll go to US, right? So Trump helped us to get some of those guys back. We are able to build a team on nuclear medicine here. The other area which I think, coming to pharmaceuticals, what pharma companies have done very well is to build a very good ecosystem for clinical trials, right? That is actually, if you ask me, one of the big reasons why pharma got to where we are today is because of the robust ecosystem they build around solid clinical trials, building foundations for that. That is one thing Medtechs are trying to do today. As we speak, there are a lot of companies globally also comes to India, look, some big hospitals here, trying to set an ecosystem to do these trials. That's also one very important element.
Money beyond the PLI scheme, related benefits, what else can the government do on the ground to really, make this a sustainable, not just remain an opportunity, but translate into,
Actually, India as a country, if you really look at entrepreneurs, there is no better country than ours. The kind of talent and the kind of enthusiasm that the Indian has is far higher. The support that the Chinese government gives, why China is able to, as you say, this volume of scale, that was not the only reason. The incentive or the subsidy that the government gives to a manufacturer in China is equivalent to the margin that you make in our country. So that is what makes him very competitive and makes us not competitive in the world over. So if they are trying to do, but the kind of loans that they are giving is too small. Entrepreneurs, that kind of loan is just not sufficient. Today, they are in the last 3-4 years, I have seen that the regulatory framework is working wonderfully well, but though they are slow, at least they are strict today. If you want to get a license, it's not easy. Earlier, it was just a walk in your park. But the regulatory, they are tightening. But they need to support the industry in the formative years. That no financial institution, no government institution is prepared to do. Unless we address that, why can't we offer them loan at low rate of interest? An entrepreneur who wants to enter into this industry has to learn to sustain by himself for at least for 5 years. If he doesn't have the resources for that, he cannot survive.
Nano, we are hitting the clock. What would your advice be to an entrepreneur who wants to build a medtech business, grow an existing medtech business?
What are the 2 or 3 things that you need in any business? One is strong product with quality. Other one is strong marketing. If you need strong marketing, you need strong resource finance. So you find an investor who has trust in you to support your idea for 5 years. And as he rightly said, it is not that we are not good in researching. It is because our users don't trust our research. We want everything from the US or the Europe, then they will accept the product. If it is developed by Indian, no, we will not accept it. Therefore, Indians don't get into research. But if there is an ecosystem, which is like your BIRAC does support research, but then they are able to support only up to the stage of the product conceiving or having a prototype. But what is this? How do you take the product to the market? There are 90 products which enter the market, but only 9 of them succeed as a product. Therefore, your ability to support yourself during that phase, you have to be very clear about it. Otherwise, it is going to be disappointing.
Harpi, we cannot go without your thoughts, final thoughts on what would your advice be to budding founders?
So maybe far fewer years of experience in actually giving advice to budding founders. We are still budding in a sense. But I think it's a combination of, 2 or 3 things, right? You solve for product, you solve for distribution, and you solve for patients, right? I think Medtech India is still evolving, getting better. As an industry, it's a sector which has a decently long gestation period, right? It requires R&D, it requires iteration, it requires trials, it requires capital, effort, all of that. But once you get past that, it can actually build a very, very profitable outcome, right? So you need stakeholders, you need partners, you need investors, you need people around you who are actually patient and who will wait that journey out with you, right? So that you can actually get there.
All right. Dia, I have crossed the time limit, so I don't know if we have any time for maybe anyone from the audience.
Hi, this is Abhinav from Sphera. Thank you, panelists, for touching upon a topic that I strongly feel about, and that's India for India. From that point of view, a logical question is margin over volumes, right? And that's what all of you spoke about. So in your businesses, at what point and how were you able to manage this conundrum of going for volumes, perhaps at the cost of margins?
What do you want to take that?
If your gross margin is less than 70%, you're not in the game. Because marketing sucks up 40%.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all of you for a wonderful session.